This week, we are going to be talking about the abortion debate. Also,
let's talk about the voting age. Is it too young?
All that and more, only on the Midday Mumbles Podcast. Welcome back. I'm Gage.
I'm Isaac.
And today we are going to be discussing the whole abortion conversation. I know, controversial. It's one of those things that people generally don't like to touch.
It gets clicks. what? I'm sorry.
It's really one of those things that people with 10 feet poles just like try to avoid to touch, but I don't know.
I mean, people avoid it far too much, I think. The abortion topic is something people really should be discussing. I think it's a big deal.
But we got the biggest balls in the podcast game, so we're going to be talking about it today.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. As you know, Isaac's walking down the street and some feminist throws something at him.
Angrily, I can feel you furiously typing your comment right now, and then I might be terrified of that. You know, who knows? Maybe.
After this episode airs, Isaac's address is going to leak out and a bunch of feminists are going to dress up like pussies and knock on his door. My body, my choice.
Oh boy. So Gage, what's your take? What's your take on abortion? What's your opinion?
You know, I think I have one of the more moderate opinions because, believe it or not, I actually used to be pro-choice. Actually, years ago, I used to be in support for abortion. Now, the reason I used to be in support with abortion was because I never really did any research on it. And I used to have the mindset, well, I'm a guy. Why the fuck should I care? But then I started, I'm talking before 2016 era, then I started becoming more of a conservative. I started getting into politics and kind of, forming my own opinions. And at that point, that's when it kind of clicked in my head. Oh shit, this is the why, I should change to pro-life or at least have some pro-life opinions.
Yeah.
So I think one of the biggest arguments with this whole thing is, rape. I hear that so much when you're having a conversation about abortion.
Well, I would say the two big things are, shut up, you misogynist, because men can't have an opinion on this, apparently. And like you said, you used to have that belief.
Right.
And also the rape.
Rape is the biggest thing. And
right. And I think that's where crossover starts to begin as far as Republicans go. I'm really unsure what I think about rape. I'm definitely very pro-life. Very pro-life. Always have been.
Listen, rape is a bad thing. Rape is a terrible thing. And I'm not going to sit here and say on a microphone that, oh, ladies, if you're raped, big deal. No, because it is a big deal. And personally, I think anyone that has the audacity to go and rape someone should be shot out in a field somewhere and left, his body to decay. He's a bad person. He's a horrible person. You're a really
bad person. Don't deserve anything good in your life if
but I don't think that child should suffer because of something that someone did that was so nasty and horrible. So, that leads me into something, my next thing. Adoption is always an answer. You have a kid, if you can't find, I'm 100% for think about this big decision. Having a child is a very expensive thing. What is it? The average American child costs a family like what, $250,000, $211,000, something like that. It's ridiculous.
I don't know.
It's expensive. A kid is expensive. And, you're younger. Isaac and I are younger. We haven't started our families yet. We're kind of young. We're young.
As one commenter already has told us, we're like young kids. We don't even get any of this. We'll talk about that, I suppose.
We're 16-year-old virgins and beanpoles. That's what he said. What's Shay? But no, so the argument, them say adoption is always an answer. If you can't financially support a family, then no, don't bring them into this world because they're just going to suffer. But okay. What I mean by that is don't conceive children. If you can't afford them,
are you saying that you shouldn't have sexual relations with people because
I'm saying if
condoms aren't perfect.
Condoms are not perfect, but they do a good job. And the birth pill.
Sure, and those aren't perfect either. Neither are perfect.
No.
Female forms of contraceptive are harmful, even.
Right.
They mess with hormones. So
right.
That's another place. But also, if your argument is that those are harmful, therefore abortion should be allowed, abortion is very harmful too. It's extremely harmful.
Especially because the abortion clinics are very liberal and they're very secretive to the point where they don't really open up to the public at all.
I've watched some people kind of sneaking in cameras and going into an abortion clinic. And the way they handle things is very secretive,
like cultish.
Well, I don't know about cultish.
Join the abortion cult.
It's like they don't want you to realize or decide against having an abortion once you're there. They want you to really not think about it, just get it over with and done, and then leave all of the hard emotions and difficulties to after it's already done when they're not dealing with you. And that's really too bad.
Also, there is no set law that says you can have, so you could have an abortion up until the day before you give birth.
Mm-hmm.
There is no law that says you have to have the limit is 20 weeks, a week, 2 weeks. There's no law on that.
Should there be a limit? Should it be at all allowed? I don't think it should be at all allowed.
I love compromise in politics, and I know that abortion is such a debated situation. And right now, it's legal in this country. Right now, abortion is legal in most states, and it's legal in the states where the majority of people. Maybe there's a few southern states where it's banned. I bet you they don't. Even if it was allowed, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't practice it as much. But there just isn't enough people. But what I'm saying is, it's already legal. And if there needs to be because there does need to be a compromise. Obviously, they're not going to settle. They're not going to say, you know what, Republicans, you're right. We know we're wrong. No, they're going to be
nothing goes that way. So it winds up being a middle ground point. But I don't think Republicans. What?
Which might be a limit.
As a society, if we ever move forward, it's going to wind up being a middle ground because the two sides are so furiously passionate on virtually everything, and they are so extreme. Now, this is something I'm very extreme on. I don't think there's really room. I mean, there's definitely room for debate, but I don't think there's room to allow abortion at all. I don't really agree with it at all. I think it's I do view it as being akin to murder for a couple of reasons. Primarily being I can't separate in my mind the thought of a fetus and the thought of a child being so very different. The argument is always that the mother and the fetus are one, and therefore, if the mother does not want that fetus in her body, it's her body to choose to do with, to do what she wills with it. But the only connection there is that there is still a physical connection between the mother and the fetus, and the fetus is entirely dependent on the mother. But is a child that's out of the womb and grown, maybe 5 years old, maybe 8 years old, are they not dependent on their parents? Do you think an 8-year-old could go manage to do things on their own, could live on their own? Maybe physically they could go do things, but they're still dependent on their parents. Kids are dependent on their parents until they're like 16 is when they start being able to possibly do things on their own.
Right, yeah.
Even at that, not really. So using the argument that the baby is dependent or the fetus is dependent on the mother is, I don't view that as being solid because of that. I mean, sure, there's still that physical connection, and I guess you could say that the mother can choose to snip off the line because that part of her's her. But should a parent of a 5-year-old just stop giving their children food or, you know, caring for their children because it's a hassle to them, because it's expensive?
It's one of those, it's a really, really hard, because abortion is one of those things where, I myself, where I used to be on the other side, I understand the conversation over there, but I also know that it's wrong. One of the biggest things, like I said, is there's no limit on when an abortion could be had. And I think that's what really bothers me the most, is you could have an abortion.
Well, I think
the day before you give birth.
Getting caught up in that side of things is dangerous in the sense that I just think that's dangerous to think that there's some magical changing point where it becomes a life and doesn't become a life. It's like, I probably view the entire pregnancy period as all being kind of the same. It's just that developing up into it being a newborn and being able to be out of the mother and be cared for outside of the mother so that they can grow more. Either way, it's the mother giving resources to the child to aid its development for quite a while before even a baby can't digest food once it's out of the mother immediately. It's still dependent on the mother for quite a while. I mean, sure, there's now you can get other breast milk and there's other solutions if you can't breastfeed, but it naturally it would still be breastfeeding.
But I think I think the argument saying, well, you have a baby, no, in this world, especially now, we live in the United States, we have some of the best birth, to prevent birth. If you have to have sex, have protected sex.
Sure.
Right? We have,
and I think
even birth control. We have so many different advanced innovations that prevent, the sperm.
Sure, but
from
what about
impregnating the woman
with regular birth control? Besides, like a condom, it's harmful hormonally to the woman typically. So,
but Isaac, I mean, if you absolutely have to have
abortion's
sex,
harmful to the woman.
But if you absolutely have to have sex, I think
no one absolutely has to have sex.
But
People want to have sex, but it's not realistic to say don't have sex. That's not realistic.
No.
But
I mean, sex has been a part of human nature, any entity for that matter.
I think when you choose to have sex, when you give consent to having sex, you assume the chance, though it is small, that the contraceptives don't work and you wind up with a child.
All right. But, let's say you do end up with a child. Let's say, that 99.9%, you're that 0.1% and you end up pregnated. Well, at that point, obviously, have the child and put it up for adoption. I mean, that makes the absolute. If you can't afford to have that child,
the adoption system kind of sucks. The foster care system sucks.
That's an alternative. That's an absolute alternative.
Sure, at least
there's over 1.5 million American families wanting to adopt a child, right? So there's absolutely no reason to say, oh, well, this is an unwanted child. No,
right. And at least the kid has a chance.
Exactly. It doesn't make any sense.
It's better than no chance.
But I think that's what pisses me off the most in this conversation is the fact that, if you absolutely have to have sex, which, by the way, Isaac, makes sense with that. You don't have to have sex, but let's say, you have to, you do, you want to, fine. But that's when you should, it should be, okay, well, I'm going to have these precautions. I'm going to take these precautions. am I on birth, the female, am I on birth control, the male, I got condoms, stuff like that. That's very important if you are going to be sexually active. And, I like to use this expression, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have, if you have hormonal problems with this stuff, well, then don't have sex. But if you want to have sex, then you're going to have to give something. That's just how it works. I mean, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have sex and then not have problems with you can. That's called unprotected sex. But that's when a child comes in.
And using it as birth control, which it a lot of times does. People say, well, people want abortions for rape cases. People want abortions for just, outside circumstances. But that's not really the majority, from my understanding.
Rape is the biggest, is one of the biggest things that I've heard people say. Women, oh, what about rape? What about rape?
It's so difficult.
It's every case. It's a case by case situation.
To give birth to a kid.
Rape is a case by case situation. Yeah. Because I don't think anyone with a straight, not a straight face, but with good conscience could tell a woman that was just raped, well, you got to have the child. But, that's when there are availability, day after. And if we are going to have to compromise, which most likely we will, I would be fine saying the day after, take a pill. I know, Isaac, I know you're a little bit passionate about the day after pill.
Well, with rape in particular, I can see that being allowable almost. Is it still wrong? I think so. Would I advise anyone I know to have an abortion after they've been raped? No, I wouldn't. But I can understand why forcing someone to carry a child that is a result of rape, that is a difficult territory that I would be willing to give up. But maybe it's not that I believe that women should abort their child in that situation. It's that I think of all things to compromise on, that's allowable.
So, Isaac, you are saying, compromise on abortion if you're raped. Well, maybe there could be some sort of regulation that says you can have an abortion. If you've been raped, you can have an abortion, but you can only have an abortion before the 15-day or 20-day period.
I don't think you should have the what a lot of people typically think of as abortion. Some of it is day after pill. That's an abortion too. Which is just going to kill the egg and it will just come out of your system. But and that's not invasive and that's not like a super damaging thing to the mother. But I don't think we should be promoting abortion in the sense of ripping it out of you once it's actually developed into something of size. Right. Because that can be damaging. So it might be seen as a way out, which is easy to take or not necessarily easy, but is you would see that as a method of taking it when you're desperate. But shouldn't we be here caring about people enough to try to stop them from hurting themselves with an abortion?
Right. I don't really consider the day after pill an abortion like you do, Isaac, because
I do.
Okay, well,
why do you not see it as an abortion?
Because, my biggest thing about abortion right now is the fact of the length of the time that you can have an abortion. If it's a day after, there's not really much growth in that, say, 12-hour, 15-hour, 24-hour period.
The genetics are already set out. The machine has already started moving.
But it's not like it's conscious.
It's already in act. If you do nothing for intervention at that point, there is a person there. I would say there will be a person there, but no, I see that as a person right there because the genetic code is in line and it is growing.
So you think So you don't think that consciousness is important. You just think, okay, well,
No.
it's in there.
What
even
about
even if all it is just designing the structure?
If consciousness is what validates a human, anyone that's plugged into a machine that's in a coma, should we just off them? Just unplug them, screw them.
I believe that's actually up to the family, generally speaking.
Well, sure. I mean, if there's no hope of them coming back, unplug them. But that's a difficult decision because they're a person still.
Right.
And people don't like people dying.
And so, I'm not advocating for this. I'm just trying to have an open dialogue conversation.
I get it. So I see those two things as the same. I see a fetus as the same as a child. I see all of these things the same. And regardless of that, I think it's important to allow for the chance of a child being successful, being happy. I don't think it's fair to assume that they're going to live a miserable life because the parents are poor or because they're going to be put into the adoption system, because they still could enjoy their life. And then they deserve that. They deserve that chance. That's how I see it, because I still see it as a person. So if you want to change my mind on this, you're going to have to fundamentally change my thought of that being a person. Because once I see it as a person, everything else I would see as treating it like a person and how I would treat a person.
Yeah, and I think that's difficult to do.
What about why don't we talk about the men shouldn't have opinions on this? Only women should have a say in this. I think. Yeah, what do you think of that?
Believe it or not, there's a lot of women that are against abortion too.
Sure, but
there are a lot of women that are against abortion.
I think it is more men are against abortion. I think there's a higher percentage of men that are against abortion than there is women that are against abortion. I think how it goes is
there's a lot more young. I think the people, the women that support abortion are generally younger.
Probably.
Younger and less experienced. And I think the problem is, in the Democrat Party especially, is a lot of older and mature women are egging these younger women on because of the whole feminist movement. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of what it comes down to.
That's what I see. I see that very much so akin to currently the BLM movement, in that I think people get very passionate about it because it's like, if you're a woman, you should stand up for yourself. Or in the case of BLM, if you're black, you should be fighting for these other black people.
But as far as men,
it's not that they're presenting necessarily an argument to them that's very convincing. It's that they work with their emotions and they get them very fired up about it, and they get them, people in general to stand with it, because it's like, that is you should stand for yourself, shouldn't you?
Right.
But that's just playing with emotions.
And as far as men on this topic, should men be involved in the conversation?
Absolutely.
I think absolutely, because
they're involved in the contraception. They're involved with it being conceived.
You can't have a man. You can't have a baby without a man. You can't have. You cannot have a child without sperm.
They're the other half of that genetic code.
And also,
it's the mixture between the two genes.
And also, sure, the woman has the child, but both of them are going to become parents. The male and the female are going to have to provide for that child.
I mean, sure, so I think there's a lot of cases where the father steps out on the child and it's just a single mother caring for the child.
But that's really another conversation. That's another conversation.
But let's get into it a little bit. Actually, I think it'd be important to talk about like the court system, in that a lot of times it winds up being a single mother caring for the kid. But
then that's when, if you can't afford it, put it up for adoption.
This is a random thought, but maybe a lot of that is that the court system is very in favor of women. They're very prone to anything involving children to just go with the woman and believe the woman.
It's always children. Even though a lot of
cases, the man is far better suited for caring for those children. Maybe there's more. I mean, I'm not saying that men have more economic ability, but in a lot of cases, there are men that are more economically stable than the mother, or there's it goes either way.
But I mean, women do a good job raising the children, making them.
Sure, I think women as a whole are more sensitive and emotional as a general thing, not as a if you're a woman you should be this, or if right. But generally speaking, I think that's kind of the way it leans a little. I don't think it's massive, but a little. It's hard baked into us. Get mad at God if you believe in a God, if you think that's a problem,
right? But I mean, as men being involved, yeah, totally. I mean, right. Men are the ones. Think about this. They're both parents. They're both gonna have to provide. They're both gonna have to work for these people.
At least they should have to.
They should. So Isaac's saying, "Oh, well, what about the men that walk out?" Well, let's be honest. I mean, at that point, there's a clear answer. If the woman is not financially suitable, or if not suitable to raise that child,
uncaring, or druggy, or in the real world,
then we have systems.
We wind up with lots of single moms that are drug addicts or poor or just don't love their children, but they wind up with the kids.
But at that point, we have systems.
That's a tragedy, because I can think I know a specific case in my mind where there is a mother that has the kids and she is not suitable, and the father is far better, but she has them because of the way the legislation works.
Right. I think everyone knows cases like that. But there's two clear options really. And our system does work in the favor of children. If there are family mothers that are unsuitable or fathers that are unsuitable, the government does step in. Yeah, sure. There should be a conversation in regard to that, because
then it turns into the foster care situation, which is a mess. Foster care is such a mess.
I would rather have a kid in the adoption system than have them be with neglected
adoption
parents.
System and the foster care system are two different things. So when there's government intervention, I'm pretty sure that goes to foster care. But when you're giving birth to a kid and you decide you don't want it, I think you can put them up for adoption. I think that's the difference. I'm not super well informed of those two systems, but I think that's what it is.
But I think the takeaway from this mostly is just, women and men both should have a say in this. And, and that's the thing that really pisses me off, is a fact where women are like, and I think this is mostly feminists, men shouldn't have a say in this. And it's like, well, yes, because it's important. Like you said, Isaac, women are more emotional, and I think that kind of surprises me. You think men would be the ones that are like, yeah, fuck it, kill it, but women are,
sure,
because women are like, oh, it's a baby, it's cute, But I think that's actually one of the things that really surprises me. As I said,
though, that's a kind of generally speaking, and I would say that's a vague generally too, because there are women that are not emotional and do not give a crap about their kid.
Right.
There's more than enough wiggle. There's lots of wiggle room. It comes down to the person first and foremost, but vaguely speaking, if you look at all women as a whole, they would tend to be more emotional.
Right.
Tend to be. That's what I've noticed. That's what I've seen other people saying. But it's still case by case, what someone is, what they believe, what they think, how they function. Right. It's not like it's you can't just assume because you're talking to a woman that they are more emotional.
Well, that's kind of how they are, though. Some of them are.
Right, but it's unfair to just assume that, because they might not be.
Yeah, true. But, I'm just, I get what you're saying. It's not really worth an argument.
No.
But
I think, generally speaking, myself that a baby and a fetus, basically one and the same. A child and a fetus, basically one and the same. I think that it's morally wrong to kill children. I think it's morally wrong to kill people. I think you should give children a fair chance. I think that emotionally it's very damaging to the mother if they have an abortion, and I think that's important. And really, I think from all sides of the story, it is better for people to not have abortions, and I don't think they should be an option.
Think about it like this, people. If you're okay with abortions, then you're okay with murder, and we should let out murderers out of prison. That's one way to look at it. So moving on, we're going to be talking about the voter age. But before we get into that, now a word from our sponsor.
Hey, I'm Gage from the Midday Mumbles Podcast. I strongly believe if you want to start a podcast today for free, you need Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. And the best part is, it's completely free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer anytime. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard across all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more epic platforms available for free. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started today for free. Again, that's Anchor.fm. One more time, that's ANCHOR.fm. I can't wait to see what you create.
And we're back. So should people listen to us, Gage? Should they care what we say?
Oh boy.
I mean, we're both 18. We're both like kids still. Does our opinion matter? I mean, I think 14. It still does. I think
I'm 14. I'm a 14-year-old virgin, and you're a 16-year-old beanpole. Oh shit! Yeah, no.
Apparently, that's what people have said. No,
but no,
sorry.
We're both 18.
I'm 18.
We both have kind of actually, Isaac, you turn 19 in about a week.
Pretty much.
And I turned August 18 3rd. In a week and 2 days. 2 days after Isaac. That's my
Gage,
birthday.
I'm older than you by 2 days.
By 2 days. Oh shit.
I should have more right to an opinion than you because I am older.
Right. But
I think you see with a lot of older people that they say, "Oh, well, you don't understand. You haven't had experiences. You don't know this because you just are not well experienced enough in the world to have a valid opinion." So there was we already referenced it, but what kind of inspired us me suggesting the abortion topic was someone commented you two are not old enough to be able to understand what's going on there. You're not at the age where you'd be having kids. You're not even, neither of us are in relationships. So what do we know? I would say that I am old enough to have an understanding of things. Right. I would say I'm old enough to be able to look at things and comprehend them, really, is the big thing. I can comprehend things. Sure, I don't have many experiences, but I can look at other people's experiences and have an opinion. And I think having an opinion is still important, regardless of who you are. Maybe I would say it's fair to weigh my opinion less than someone who has a lot of experiences, but I don't think it's fair to just say, shut up because you don't know.
Right. Well, okay. So, one of the biggest things, I think one of the biggest, points of this whole, listen, I've said this many times in the past. The opinions of young people are just as important as the opinions of older people. I was brought up where people would say, older people usually tend to be wiser because they have more experience. That's true. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that everything that they say or they agree with or they stand for is correct. That's why younger people also have great ideas because younger people see the world in a different way than older people. Right. Younger people see the innovations and the changes, with social media, whereas older, and I think one of the greatest examples of this was Facebook was up, in Congress testifying, and the older people were asking the dumbest freaking questions ever.
Right. And the younger people, that is the case with tech as a whole, tech legislation.
And young people understand.
Younger people.
And younger people understand, obviously I'm not saying all younger people understand, the coding languages, the bits and bobs about
sure, but we've grown up with technology. It's not something we've had to adapt to. It's something that we are very much so almost symbiotic with. It's kind of a way of life now. You need it to function. If you want a job, you go to your computer. Right. If you want entertainment, you go to your computer. If you want to talk to your friends, you go to your computer. It is kind of how we function now.
But I find it funny because like older people. So going back to that Facebook testifying thing, one of the questions was, well, if I take this cell phone into the other room or go to McDonald's, will it know that I left? It's like, okay, you're asking dumb questions now. But I mean, I think not even just with tech, younger people see the world in a different light. Younger people see problems in a different light. And I think that's important, especially in a democracy, to have conversations.
Right. Any opinion is important and should be valued and should be heard.
But listen,
because any discussion is important because you might be wrong.
One of the biggest problems with this country is Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate. That they're always going back and forth. They're bickering. They're arguing. They can't pass shit to save their lives. You get it's the same people in there for 40 plus years. Now, I'm not saying freshman congressmen and congresswomen are fine. I mean, look at AOC for instance. She's a complete hot mess. But I'm serious. But the problem is. No. If there were a lot more younger people in Congress, kind of split it between older and younger people, there'd be I bet you there would be a lot more progress because there'd be progress. Well,
there'd be probably more ideas. I don't know about progress.
Well, I mean,
progress doesn't really happen in our current system.
Younger people understand compromise more than older people. Younger people know how to compromise more. I mean, younger people know how to have the right conversations versus older people. Older people are used to the old timey ways of, oh, well, if you have a conflict, fucking blow the country up, right? Go to war. Younger people look at things in a different light. I don't support war, but I also don't think that we should drop our guard. I don't think we should demilitarize our country and be all peace, love, and happiness.
That's another conversation just for another day. I mean,
we're coming up with these podcast topics just so
we need to record ourselves when we're trying to come up with ideas to talk about.
Right. But,
maybe we'll actually have some.
Yeah, but honestly, honest to God, Brody and Isaac are the type of people that really they second guess themselves. Mm-hmm. You guys, and no offense to you, Isaac or Brody, if you're listening.
Yeah, no.
You guys will come up with these ideas or these opinions, and then you guys kind of rather than run with them or do more research into them, you just think, oh, that's stupid. I feel like young people especially aren't confident enough in themselves. And they put themselves down too much, like Brody and Isaac say all the time.
Would you say that has something to do with why? Would you say that's a result of them being put down for not knowing enough, sort of deal? Would you say that's a result of that? I'm just trying to figure out how it ties in.
Well, okay, so Brody and Isaac, and I'm going to use you guys as examples, but
yeah, that's fine.
You guys aren't very confident when it comes to your ideas, especially political. You say something and it's like, you're embarrassed to say what you said. Yeah. And I feel like it's because young people are afraid that older people are going to say that's a dumb idea. And podcasting, especially, we put our ideas out on a platform. Now, I know for myself, I really don't have that much of a filter. What I think of comes out. Whereas Isaac and Brody are very articulate. They articulate what they're going to say. They're like, is this going to make me look like a jackass? How is this going to make me look?
Well, I don't know. I would say pretty much when I'm podcasting, I'm just kind of spewing what comes to mind a little bit.
But Brody is very much like
Brody has a serious filter.
This?
That's kind of a big portion of why he doesn't talk too much, because he's really processing what's going on before he speaks, which is a good trait. It's a good
trait, yeah. But at the same time, I think that's really a huge problem with young people. And you got to think, Isaac, we are going to be running this world soon. Older people are going to die. It's how every generation works.
Well,
the old die off, the young become old, the young run things. And we are going to be running things soon. And with that said...
young people should have an opinion. Old people should still have an opinion. It's not like, screw them because we're going to be running it next.
But I feel like if we're younger and we say, oh, well, our ideas don't matter, and we're not willing to express our opinions on things.
You're saying that will create a damaging effect when we're actually
because
older
right
people.
Now is the great time to come up with ideas and run those by older people, because the older people they've experienced a lot of conflict. World War I, World War II, the Cold War, Vietnam. The Cuban Missile Crisis, everything else, and they've lived through that, and they've had experience with that. The presidents, John F. Kennedy, fucking FDR, Nixon, all those presidents, LBJ. If there are, I'm talking about 50 years ago, but still, that's important, because these are people that you can kind of learn. You've lived through that, so what they've done and the repercussions of what they've done. So I think that's important also for young people to express ideas and say, this is what I'm thinking. And I think a lot of leftists, young people do that, the protesting, for example. But I feel like a lot of young conservatives are very they don't really like to express themselves.
Sure. I think conservative people as a whole are probably more quiet. And I think especially conservatives that are young, because I would think they would generally have the mentality of, older people are wiser and let them kind of take the
and I believe that to an extent. You don't get me wrong, older people are great. I recommend to anyone, if you have an older person readily available that's 80, 85 years old, have a conversation, because you are going to learn a lot. But at the same time, they're human just like us, and they've made mistakes. And I think for someone to say, oh, they're older, so they're the all wise, they can't do any wrong. No, they've done plenty of wrong in their lives. Trust me. So I don't think it's fair to say, well, my idea, I'm just going to let them run things because my ideas aren't as good, or my ideas don't, they're going to laugh at my idea. No, that's not how running a country works. You know what I mean? We need ideas, especially in a democracy. You know how many problems this country runs into?
A lot. We're in pretty much a constant state of problem.
Well, we're in a constant state of idle. We've been idle fucking since the beginning.
And that's one of the big problems.
It's like you can only pass stuff if it's going to benefit both sides.
Right. Protest all you want. The people that are in legislation aren't listening. They just vote for whatever they believe in.
But they vote in what's going to get them reelected the most.
Right, exactly. They vote in, what political party do I support? So I gotta vote to support them, or I'll still be an ad on TV that's, this person does not support your beliefs. Do not vote for so and so, because they vote against what you believe in. And
sorry, Susan, sorry, Susan. Just come on the podcast.
You do not want this person in Congress.
Right. Yeah. No, I understand. I feel like young people are important in politics, especially because, like I said, we have ideas, and we have ideas on technology too. We could, technology is very important, and I think the integration of government and technology is, I'm not saying like Google, all that shit. I'm saying having more programs for, you know what I mean, Isaac? I think it's important. Young people are very smart. They know what they're talking about when it comes to newer stuff. Well, they can easily adapt to new things. Whereas older people have a problem with that. Older people, and I think that's one of the things that really annoys me the most is for some reason, older people can't learn new things.
Generally speaking, people have a tendency to kind of be set in their ways. You get familiar with something and that's what you want to stick to. But the reason why younger people, I feel, adapt to those things better is because we're creating our ways right now. We're creating what we're used to. We're creating what we know right now, so we can add stuff to that. But it's very hard once you're very familiar with the way of life to just change it on a whim. And I don't think you can expect older people to be able to do that as much as younger people. And that's another reason I would say why younger people, it is important to have their opinion be heard, because we're still adaptable. We're still growing and learning, and that's an important perspective to have. All perspectives are important to have, and that is one of them.
But you cannot teach an old dog new tricks. You can't. It's difficult. No matter how hard you try, it's nearly impossible, honestly. And it's one of those things. It sucks, but what are you gonna do, right? I think that's it for today's episode of the Midday Mumbles Podcast. But before we end it out, here's a word from our sponsor.
Hey, I'm Gage from the Midday Mumbles Podcast. I strongly believe if you want to start a podcast today for free, you need Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. And the best part is, it's completely free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer anytime. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard across all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more epic platforms available for free. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started today for free. Again, that's Anchor.fm. One more time, that's ANCHOR.fm. I can't wait to see what you create.
And we're back to end things out. Brody wasn't here again this week. Well, we're gonna have
we had some difficulties in setting the day to do it, and then me and Gage showed up at the office late last night, and then my computer was being problematic.
So we had to come this morning.
Yeah, I showed up here at 8 a.m. like Gage told me to. Gage showed up here at 8:30.
You got here at 8:08.
Calling you. Sure, but calling Gage out for being late. Am I overtired? Absolutely.
I'm glad you didn't leave, Isaac. So as far as Birdie, hopefully he'll be back next week. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But yeah, we need, why don't everyone just say on Twitter, #Brody come back, because
Bring back Brody.
Bring back Brody. Bring back Brody. But yeah, I think that's all for today. If you did enjoy, please like, subscribe, share. Please rate us on Apple Podcasts, because that would really mean a lot. Thank you guys all for the support.
Do all those social media type things.
Thanks everyone for the support. This week we had more views, engagements, everything than we've ever had in our entire
it's been really, really big.
Yeah, so we really appreciate everyone listening. We really appreciate everybody. And until next time, guys, I'm Gage.
I'm Isaac.
We're signing off. Have a good one.
See you later.